The topic of the day is characteristics of life. Sitting in a biology class, you are studying what it means to be a living thing. Biology is the study of life. But what is it that makes something a living thing? What are the characteristics? What are the qualifications that we know that one thing is in fact alive and something else is not? I want you to look at the pictures that I'm going to have scroll in front of you here and see if you can come up with a list of everything that it means to be a living thing. What are all the characteristics that are required for something to be alive? So some of those pictures were just pictures of nature. Some of those pictures were just kind of funny. But hopefully all of them led you to some of these that are listed here that represent life, that represent what it means to be a living thing. All living things have to do or be or have the list of qualifications that you now see in front of you. All living things have to have the ability to reproduce. Now, does every individual have to reproduce or have to have the ability? No. Many of you, I'm sure, don't have children. You have not reproduced. Does that mean that you're not alive? Of course it doesn't. As a group, as a species, can humans reproduce? Yes, we can, and therefore we are living things. At least we meet that one qualification. All living things have to have the universal genetic code, which we know to be DNA. Deoxyribonucleic acid provides us with our traits. Those traits then get passed on from generation to generation when we do reproduce. Living things grow. They get bigger. Cells divide, etc. Even if a living thing is simply made of one cell, that one single cell can physically enlarge. So living things grow. Living things have a source of energy. Now, it's not necessarily going to be the same source. We know that we eat food, we gain sugar, we consume oxygen, and between those things we make energy. Plant is going to do things in a different way. Plant's going to sit in the sun, take in water, take in carbon dioxide. It makes its own sugar and then uses that sugar as a source of energy. But all living things have to have some source of energy. Living things respond to stimuli. Again, not all the same responses and not to the same stimuli, but we all respond to things. The very first picture I showed you was a shark. My guess is if you were in the ocean and you saw a shark coming at you, you would not have to stop and think, there's a large carnivorous animal heading in my direction. I probably want to move in the other direction. No, you would be running for the beach or swimming for the beach as fast as you possibly could. If you put a plant in the window, it will respond to the sun. It will grow towards the light. So different response to a different stimuli, but all living things do respond to stimuli. Living things adapt to the environment. Now, you got to be careful about this one as well. If I dropped you off in the middle of Antarctica in the winter time with only your bathing suit on, would you adapt? Would you grow a thick layer of fur and perhaps some blubber and insulate yourself? No, you would probably die. But as a group, as a species, do we, over the course of generations, adapt to the environment in which we are living? Yeah, there's a term for that. It's called evolution by natural selection, and that's something you'll learn later on in this course. All living things have a lifespan. Unfortunately, we're born and eventually we do all die. And so, although again, it varies from organism to organism, all living things have a specific lifespan. These last two then are important and require a little bit more of an explanation than just seeing them here on this list. All living things are made of cells, and all living things are homeostatic. Let's deal with the idea of a cell for a second. If you look at this chart, you can see on the left-hand side the level of organization, and it starts with the atomic level. Atoms, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, gold, silver, those are all different elements. There are different atoms. And what happens is when you put atoms together in correct combinations, they will make specific molecules, as listed here: water, DNA, carbohydrates, things like that. Neither of those two levels are living. Atoms are not alive. Molecules are not alive. And yet, something kind of magical happens when you take the right molecules and you put them together in the right combinations and you make a cell. There's our line in the sand. That is where we say, hey, when you cross this, when you cross this line and go from the molecular level to the cellular level, we've got life. Cells are alive. They are the smallest version of a living thing. And some living things stop there. Like, they are only one cell, and they are living things. Some of us, all of us, have greater levels of complexity than that. If we take specific cells and put them together in the right combinations, we will make tissues like muscle tissue and connective tissue. If you take the right tissues together, you will get organs like the brain or the heart or lungs, whatever it might be, that have specific functions. And then we have different organs organized together into systems. You're probably familiar with the immune system, the reproductive system, the muscular system, and as it states here, digestive and circulatory, and there are certainly others. And you can then take all of those systems and put them together, and you've got yourself. So although the simplest version of things is the cellular level, many living things have greater levels of complexity. But again, there is that magic line right here where anything below that is living and anything above that is not, even though these things here, the atoms and the molecules, are necessary in composing the cell and the tissues and the organs, etc. That leaves us with our very last idea, and that is homeostasis. Definition for homeostasis is maintaining a stable internal environment. If you think about yourself and everything that goes on around you, there is chaos around you. Things change all the time. Just think of the weather, for instance. But inside you, inside your body, what you are always trying to achieve is stability, sameness. It's also known as stasis. So stasis means staying the same. The classic example of homeostasis would be your body temperature. We all know the number, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. We want to maintain that. Do we stray from it a little bit? Sure, now and then. Your temperature might get a little warmer than that. It might get a little cooler than that, but you really do try to maintain that 98.6. And based on the diagram that you see here, this is sort of the mechanism in which that happens. There are three important parts to something called a homeostatic loop that you're looking at here. There is the receptor, the control center, and the effector. And you can see that they're all connected by these arrows. In our example of body temperature, the receptor would be nerves in your body, most likely in your skin, that sense temperature. The receptors take in data, essentially. Now, they don't know what that data means. They don't know if it's good. They don't know if it's bad. They just take in the data. Hey, it's 98.6. It's 98.6. Oh, it's 99. It's 99.2. It's 99.8. Temperature is going up. But it doesn't mean anything to the receptors. They just take in data. Those nerves take your temperature. They send that data, though, to the control center part of your body. Now, in many cases, that control center happens to be your brain. And your brain is the situation here where it knows, oh, 98.6 is what we want, but 99 is getting a little too hot. 99.8, hotter still. And so it knows that's too hot, and it needs to do something about it. So it's going to send a message to the effector. And many of you already know that when you start to get too hot, your body's response is to sweat. Sweat is water that's going to get onto the surface of your skin, and as it uses the heat of your skin to evaporate, it drops the temperature back down. And of course, who's going to notice that? Hey, the receptor, which tells the brain, the control center, which the brain now knows, oh, we're back to 98.6, therefore, hey, stop sweating. And so the effector will stop doing what it's doing. And so you just have this constant loop taking place literally every second of your life that is maintaining a stable internal environment. Sweating would be what happens when you get too hot. Of course, you shiver when you're too cold. Both of those return you to that ideal temperature of 98.6. And there's a million examples of this. Blood sugar, blood calcium levels, all of those types of things need to be maintained. They need to be stable or static so that they can maintain that stable internal environment. And so all of those contribute to a living thing being a living thing. You can't have some of these. You've got to have them all. For a living thing to be a living thing, it must reproduce, it must have DNA, it must grow, have energy, respond to stimuli, adapt to the environment, have a lifespan, be made of cells, and be homeostatic.